Okay. I don't know if anybody, if there was a little bit of primer on my background, um, but I'll go through it really quickly. My name is Anthony Torres. I'm the program director of the Kent County Veterans Treatment Court. I hold a master's degree in social work from Western Michigan with a concentration in policy planning and administration. So I am a macro level policy type social worker, non-clinical, but some of my background includes working with the Calhoun County Public Health Department, various nonprofit organizations in this state and in Texas. And prior to here, I was working with the Department of Veterans Affairs in South Central Texas as a fiduciary unit field examiner, working with those that have been adjudicated and competent to handle their benefits. I appointed federal fiduciaries, whether they be individuals, corporations, or institutions. And I did that. I'm also a veteran of the United States Army. I'm a Cold Warrior. I served with the 1st Infantry Division in the mid 80s and spent some time with the Berlin Brigade when the wall was still up and when Ronald Reagan said, "Mr. Gorbachev, tear down that wall." I was there. I've been here at the Kent County Veterans Treatment Court since its inception in June of 2015. And with that, I'd like to start off with our PowerPoint. I'm going to start with the PowerPoint, and then I have several videos that kind of work well with it. It kind of gives the verbal and the literature I'm going to put forth some little bit of content too. And afterwards, I'm going to be able to ask if anybody has any questions that I can answer. It's good to see we have law enforcement here with us. Maybe they can embellish on a few things too. I do not have a specific law enforcement background, but I've worked with law enforcement, with policy at the state, at the county and federal level. So I'm somewhat familiar with what's going on now. So I would like to start my PowerPoint, Samantha. Okay. Welcome to the Kent County Veterans Treatment Court. Our motto, as with most veterans treatment courts along this country, is Nullum relinquam post veteran, which is Latin for leave no veteran behind. Next. The Kent County Veterans Treatment Court is located at 62A District Court in Wyoming, Michigan, under the auspices of our presiding judge, the Honorable Pablo Cortez, who happens also to be the chief judge at this point in time at the 62A District Court. There's the identifying information of today's presentation and my information below. Next. Discussion points, and this is going to be somewhat a little fluid, but the high points we're going to talk about is a couple of primers. Why establish veterans treatment courts? And what is the Kent County Veterans Treatment Court specifically? The 10 key concepts of veterans treatment courts, and some of the methodologies and development and operations that we've learned directly. And how we've learned is through various regional and national entities, to include the Muskegon Veterans Court, Calhoun County, Ingham County, and Allegan. Allegan encompasses a regional veterans court called the West Michigan Regional Veterans Court that encompasses Allegan, Ottawa County, and Van Buren County. And then also from the national level, we went to Tulsa, Oklahoma. And I specifically, because I used to live there, went to the Bexar County or San Antonio, Texas Veterans Treatment Court there. And then we'll discuss some trends and policies affecting veterans treatment courts specifically here in Michigan. And then we'll have some time for questions and answers. But I want to go back and talk about what we have learned from the regional veterans treatment courts first. With regards to starting this program in June of 2015, there was already several veterans treatment courts in the region that were existing, specifically Ingham, Muskegon, Calhoun, and Ionia, and Allegan. So some of the advice I got was to start off slow and build up your program, because as an example, a program like Muskegon, they went full bore once they got their funding and got all their pieces in place, and they had a lot of growing pains. So the good, solid advice I got from the folks in Muskegon were to do this methodically, build it small, learn, and go from there. We tend in Kent County to model ourselves specifically from Ingham. And the reason we do that is because we are of similar size district courts, and we are also led and run in very similar ways. But what we have done when we started this program, and it's part of our learning curve, actually visited all these programs and talked to the judges, talked to the treatment teams, and actually witnessed the processes, what they used in order to facilitate the program. As an afterthought, there are several new veterans treatment courts in the state. And at this point in time, there are 27 veterans treatment courts in the state of Michigan. At our point, slightly after we received our funding and our legal administrative order to start, the following year, we went to the actual federal training from Bureau of Justice Assistance to Tulsa, Oklahoma. We had a choice of various national models within the country to attend to kind of get the nuts and bolts and fine tune what we started. So because of schedules and whatnot, we picked Tulsa County, which was good. And specifically with Tulsa, what that enabled us to do was go from an initial, from point of inception, from misdemeanors and the occasional felony case to pure felony cases, and as an afterthought, misdemeanor filed. And we found that once we did that, our census grew considerably. I've also sojourned down to Bexar County, San Antonio, Texas, to view their veterans treatment court. And understand San Antonio is the 7th largest city in America. And their court is run by a retired special forces colonel who's extremely intimidating to look at, but really is a big sweetheart. But they ran it their way, and anybody who was a veteran was mandated to join their court. So for them, it wasn't voluntary. If you were a veteran, you went into that court, which is the exception rather than the rule for most other courts. So to go back, Tulsa was really the eye opener for us for changing things. There was multiple treatment team members that went to Tulsa, and of those, 2 were attorneys. One was court services, myself, and then we had a treatment provider, a substance abuse provider. Okay, next slide, please. Okay. Why establish veterans treatment courts? Okay. There's a lot of history of veterans treatment courts out there, but just to really specifically, in a nutshell, they were established in 2008 by a judge in Buffalo, New York, who really got tired of seeing veterans in front of his docket always in trouble. And most of them were Vietnam veterans. So he got together with the local VA, who got together with national VA and the Department of Justice to see what can be done. And long story short, veterans treatment courts were created. It started in Buffalo and spread throughout the county. It's a partnership of the Department of Justice and the Department of Veterans Affairs, farmed out to the individual states. So why establish a veterans treatment courts? Well, Veterans Treatment Court allows jurisdictions to serve a large segment of the justice-involved veteran population, as opposed to business as usual. Having all veterans appear before random judges who may or may not have the understanding of the unique experiences and issues. So I like to use the example of a veterans court being a small unit formation, kind of a cohort group. Now, in having said that, when you run a veterans treatment court and they have appearances, they appear in front of the same judge repetitively for, depending on their charge, for the length of their probationary period. So the judge has a little bit of understanding of the background of the veteran, you know, not just his criminogenic behavior, but his personality, where he served, family issues he may be struggling with, so on and so forth. He is not just a number. He is somebody. They're giving an identity. So that's what these programs allow. The Veterans Treatment Court team and the judge take a vested interest in each and every veteran. Our judge, Pablo Cortez, likes to say veterans have earned their own court, and it's an honor to serve them. Veterans treatment courts are based on the drug court model. The drug court model was established by the Department of Justice back in 1997. And that model kind of morphed into veterans treatment courts. Many specialty courts are based on the drug court model. And there is so much research in the current best practices of the Veterans Treatment Court Manual, which there is in the state of Michigan. Because of the studies from drug courts, relevant information and practices have been applied to the Veterans Treatment Court concept. So Veterans Treatment Courts now have a manual that the State Court Administrator's Office, or SCAO, which you'll hear me say quite a bit, has published. And it's taken from not just veterans treatment courts within the state, but other drug courts in the state and drug courts and veterans courts in the nation, kind of taking some of their best practices and fine tuning it and making these things available. And it's an ongoing living document. It changes periodically. It first came out in 2017. It came out again in 2019 and another one in 2021. And I'll show you a screenshot of that here during the course of the presentation. Veterans treatment courts, which we call VTCs, are designed to provide support and resources for veterans involved in the criminal justice system rather than punishment. So we're focusing more on treatment and resources and supports rather than the typical business as usual model of incarceration, your number, next. These courts are modeled after mental health and drug courts. So having said that, veterans treatment courts, because of the populations we serve, are considered hybrid courts, mental health and drug courts. And these courts were established to emphasize treatment rather than incarceration. And I can speak from my experiences living and working in San Antonio, Texas, in the early 2000s, middle 2000s, before veterans treatment courts ever made it down there. A lot of veterans were getting killed by law enforcement because they were aggressive, they were violent, and you know, in Texas, it's a different animal down there, and more than a few veterans who actually were suicidal, when you stop and think about it, were killed by law enforcement because of the threat they posed, not just to themselves and others, but to law enforcement who was present. What I'd like to do now, and Samantha, if you can help me out there, you see that link down there. Here is a 3-minute overview. It's a brief YouTube video that's on the web that tells you in a nutshell what a veterans court is.
The longest war in America's history has just ended. The men and women who fought for our freedom are among our greatest civic assets. When they return home, we're thankful and proud of their service. Most veterans are strengthened by their experience in the military. But right now, more than half of the 2.6 million who deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan return with mental health conditions related to their service. 1 in 6 struggle with addiction, and 1 in 5 have PTSD. Left untreated, these issues make it difficult to adjust to life after they return and can lead to unemployment, homelessness, and arrest. There are 700,000 vets in the criminal justice system right now, many of them arrested for charges directly related to trauma, addiction, or mental illness. For a long time, our justice system relied on punishment to change behavior. This hasn't worked. New veterans treatment courts provide an alternative to incarceration. These veterans-only courtrooms offer treatment, accountability, and structure, while connecting them to benefits they have earned. If there is no veterans treatment court available, they may end up in jail, separated from family, without treatment, and stuck in a cycle from which they may never recover. But in veterans treatment courts, they are surrounded by other veterans. They receive veteran-specific treatment, meet regularly with a veteran mentor, and they have the opportunity to get their life back on track. This year, 11,000 veterans who would otherwise be behind bars are receiving life-saving treatment. The average cost to keep someone in prison is over $22,000 a year. If the veterans who need help had gone to jail instead of treatment, the bill could have been $248 million. And those that go through the program are less likely to be rearrested. The country's first veterans treatment court has a 98% success rate. That's unprecedented in American criminal justice. Veterans treatment courts save lives, families, and futures. It returns vets to the life they fought to protect. You can help to put veterans treatment courts within reach of every veteran in need. Learn more and take action at takepart.com/return the service.
And again, that video is available on YouTube. It's a general good primer for those that have no idea what a veterans court is. A veterans court, down into its core, is a specialty court. It is a problem-solving court specific to veterans. As defined MCL 600-1200H. So this is in statute, Michigan compiled law. We are a court-supervised alternative diversionary program coupled with intensive treatment, supervision, and substance abuse testing for nonviolent criminal offenders. We are designed, Kent County Veterans Treatment Court is designed to address those veterans who are committing criminal offenses related to injuries that were incurred through military service, as well as those committed through a failure to adequately address issues attendant to military service. So what that means is that there has to be some sort of nexus, for the most part, between their military service and the veterans' involvement in the criminal justice system. Why are they there? And the veterans treatment courts are structured to address that issues that was related to military into the service and never experienced some of those traumas or issues involved in military service. They wouldn't be standing in front of a judge or being arrested. So what do? The Veterans Court utilizes the 10 key concepts as defined, and again, Michigan Compiled Law 600-1201, Section 1A through J. Now, Veterans Treatment Courts in Kent County and for the state of Michigan, and for this is not standard normal probation. Most of our veterans that are in this program, this isn't their first dance. Some of them have extensive, I hate to say it, rap sheets, but the thought is you give high intensity supervision, numerous drug tests, and mandate treatment. What are we doing? We're trying to modify negative behaviors. And that's the essence of what specialty courts do, behavior modification. Next slide. Part 2, what do? Well, veterans treatment courts are problem-solving hybrid specialty courts that address a veteran's mental health and or substance abuse problems within the context of the criminal justice system. How this differs is that from normal probation and from a lot of other specialty courts, a holistic, non-traditional, non-adversarial approach is used. in conjunction with the veterans' individual discipline, their focus, and we demand personal accountability to help not only ensure the public safety, but as well as individual probationary success. So the difference between a lot of what we do here at the Veterans Court in Kent County and potentially other specialty courts, veterans courts, sobriety court, drug courts, is that we deal only with veterans. You have to qualify as a veteran, be eligible per statute and other factors in order to even get in here. And we serve, myself and my staff, all we work with are justice-involved veterans in this program. We don't do nothing else. So we're able to commit the time, the energy, the resources, and oversight to not only address their needs, but get to know them to preempt any kind of problems or spot any trends with any veteran, because we spend enough time with them because of the parameters of the program. Kent County Veterans Treatment Court was established in June of 2015, which is again based in 62A District Court in Wyoming. And we are available for those veterans who are residents of Montcalm County, Berry County, and Kent County, Michigan. We were solely within Kent County, but now because we understand Berry County just to the south of us and Montcalm to the north of it, they don't have any veterans treatment courts, and they have, I don't want to say a significant amount of veterans within their county limits. And we've been in conversations with their chief prosecutors and defense counsels, and they're all for having some of their veterans participate in our program. But we are not formally in a regional agreement as with Allegan, Ottawa, and Van Buren. We find that, well, we do everything because we have the resources here in Kent County, the relationships, and honestly, somewhat of the money. We can make things happen quicker, easier, more streamlined. But the same requirements to get into the Veterans Court of Kent County apply to Montcalm and Berry veterans as well. Next slide. Okay, before we start this next slide, I want to play another video for you. And this kind of goes specifically to what the Kent County Veterans Treatment Court is.
Of war-injured veterans joining our community for years to come. PTSD, drug addiction, alienation from friends and family, a loss of personal value and purpose can result from these injuries. Some veterans act out their internal conflicts and wind up in trouble with the law. Often, their first time in jail is just one of many steps along a revolving cycle of legal and personal problems. It doesn't have to be that way. In Kent County, when a veteran's behavior lands them in jail, there is an option waiting for them: the Kent County Veterans Treatment Court. For veterans who qualify, it's a voluntary option that emphasizes therapeutic actions over punitive consequences. The court is committed to helping vets regain control over their personal behavior and their lives.
I did a tour in Iraq, one in Afghanistan, and I did a year in Guantanamo Bay. So once you do stuff like that, it changes you irrevocably. And when I got medically discharged and sent back home, I did good for a few months. And after a little while, I started having a beer here, a beer there, because what's a beer hurt? But then it just kept building up because I wasn't getting the treatment that I should have been getting also. And which led to my encounter with the law enforcement.
Okay, thanks.
The court then put me into treatment and set up real ramifications, consequences if I didn't attend my mental health treatment, if I didn't attend substance abuse classes.
It was some years after I came back from Vietnam and I'd gone to college. Seemed to be doing well. I had a bit of a drinking issue, but I managed to keep it under control somewhat. Then things started going to hell. I was having too much pressure. I started to feel depressed, And I went to the VA and talked to a psychiatrist there, and they diagnosed me with PTSD, which I didn't even know what the heck that was. That's post-traumatic stress disorder. At any rate, I got another drunk driving, and I wound up facing prison, state prison. But my lawyer and the court managed to get me into this program. And at first I was reluctant. I didn't know what to expect. Usually a court is trouble. This court was different.
Traditionally, when somebody is arrested and charged with a crime, they're given a court date, a court docket number, and they continue through that process with that same docket number until they're sentenced. Well, at Kent County Veterans Treatment Court, we are able to give a veteran a different option. And this option includes becoming more than just a docket number. We're able to give their story a voice, put a name with a face, and we're able to process them through the criminal justice experience in a better light. A veteran might choose to join the Kent County Veterans Treatment Court because they're able to deal with the problems that have been caused overseas from their military service and get the treatment that they need that they have not been yet receiving.
The program is a volunteer program, and it typically is 18 to 24 months. The court has a treatment team. It's made up of a prosecutor, several volunteer defense attorneys, a pretrial investigator supervisor who works out at the jail, program director of Veterans Court, myself, the judge, court administrator, a substance abuse counselor, someone from the Veteran Services.
Within the scope of the program, we try to meet for what's called a status review at least twice a month. But prior to each status review, we have what's known as a team meeting or a treatment team meeting. And basically, we look at each individual veteran based on their participation in the program up until that point. We walk through everything in terms of treatment, community service, paying fines and fees, substance abuse testing, things of that sort. As always, this is treatment focused, not so much punitive, but all these veterans are held to account.
If there is some kind of liberty interest or sanction or something that has to be done, because ultimately this is a court, the judge has the final say, but he takes each one of our input seriously and asks our opinion, and he makes that decision. So far, everyone that's completed the program has completed it successfully, so that's a win. That's a lot of wins for us.
I think what makes this team effective is that every single person involved in it wants to be here. I think everyone is motivated by a desire to give back, to somehow recognize the fact that veterans, through their service, have earned their own court. And no one is here as part of this court as a client, so to speak, whose conduct that landed him here is not connected to military service. So our presumption is that if you had not served where you served, maybe you wouldn't have been here at all. And I think that justifies them having their own court and us helping them. They helped us, we helped them back.
There are a lot of veterans coming from the global war on terror and the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq coming back to this community. They go through those experiences and they come back, but they don't come back the same person. They react, they change, they're crying out. And what this program and this court and this team and this community is trying to do is take these veterans that are broken, that are hurt, that are out there, but get them more into a treatment mode, show that we care, get them participating, show some empathy, show respect.
This program can save the life of a veteran, and I am one of them. So when I entered the court, and I was a bit resistant at first, and then realized that this court is helping me. They're not trying to hinder me. They're not trying to find the quickest way to end me in jail. They actually care about us veterans. And I'm like, awesome. I've got a judge, a probation officer, and a couple board members that give a crap. They want to know not only who we are, what happened, why we're here, and what they can do to help so we don't end up here again, and to help us move forward.
This court is mission-driven to changing lives, changing behaviors, changing the outlooks for the veterans, giving them a sense of hope. The mission is to make sure that this society cares for our veterans.
This program would not work without the close relationship between our court and the Kent County prosecutor. We can't offer our veterans any reward on the legal side for completing this program without the prosecutor's participation. And they're the ones that really offer the carrot to the veterans.
Removing something off a permanent record is another carrot, if you will. That's something, one of the carrots we do have. The biggest one is sometimes, they plead to a felony charge, and if they successfully complete the court, we may knock it down to a misdemeanor charge, and that's a huge benefit. Some veterans courts even dismiss the case altogether. And that may be a situation if you're charged with a misdemeanor, we could do something like that.
For a lot of the guys who come into the court, sometimes the first person that they're going to see is me, because I'm the one reaching out to them in jail. So I'm going to go see them in jail and talk them through when they're at their lowest, and see them to say, okay, well, maybe we have an out, and maybe this is a way that we can do these things. And one of the unique aspects that I bring is that I speak both of the languages. As both a lawyer and as a substance abuse counselor, I'm able to connect those two worlds together and help veterans who are either new to the criminal justice system get connected into the treatment side, or some that aren't so new to the criminal justice system but feel jaded and rigid about it, to be able to get them to see it in a different light. My vision for what these courts are is they provide space for healing. With a court like this, we actually take the time to allow these veterans to get through the issues that are keeping them on this revolving cycle back and forth to these courts. And once we can deal with those things, we can stop that cycle. We can break that cycle that brings them back in front of a judge. Everybody comes home different than when they left, whether it's PTSD or dealing with anxiety or dealing with any number of things that come home with. I have to deal with them. And sometimes I will deal with them in healthy ways. But for a lot of guys, and for the folks that we have coming through the treatment courts, that wasn't the case. Something has to have happened to bring them here.
Regardless of what the charge is, the veterans are brought in. The treatment is catered to that veteran on what they need to do to get themselves back on track. Then, in turn, the court holds the veteran accountable to their treatment program, their individualized treatment program.
Accountability, that's a big issue with this court. But as you get into it, you realize that it's not a detriment. They're trying to help you to get a hold of yourself and, get your stuff straightened around.
This program is important to our community because, number one, it brings services to people who have earned them, who are our veterans. And secondly, because if the veteran succeeds, we all succeed. It benefits the individual, the community, and in a larger sense, the whole idea of the justice system, because it accomplishes what we want to do, which is get people on the right track, not warehouse them in a jail or have them commit suicide or be subject to some other tragedy.
People have said, how big of an impact this has had on their lives in terms of getting their lives turned around and getting jobs and getting, their kids back or doing something along those lines. I mean, those are the victories, if you will.
The mission is to get these veterans the treatment they deserve, the benefits they deserve, the respect they've earned and deserve, and to have them become a productive member of society, change their behaviors, and they're contributing to society and being involved and engaged and not isolated.
It's because of this court that I'm living a healthier lifestyle, making decisions not on knee-jerk reactions or just straight aggression, but actually contemplating what is the best course of action. So yeah, it was a challenge. I did it because I wanted it. I wanted to show that I was 100% committed to this court because they have shown me that they're committed to me as well. Every individual veteran that comes in knows that they have that commitment and accountability that they have to answer to. And Judge Cortez, his main interest is the betterment of us. He wants to see us succeed. He doesn't want to see us in jail. He wants us to thrive.
And it's just been a phenomenally healthy experience for me. It made me a better neighbor, it's made me a better person, and I like to think it's made me a better soldier, even though I'm retired.
Veterans Court is something that I could never have fathomed in the past. And I just know that this thing really is legit. They care, and they don't stop caring. It's just great.
The Kent County Veterans Treatment Court is a mission-driven court. It's on a mission to restore the ability of veterans to lead successful lives. The court is ready to expand its services, but needs your help to do it. Talk with members of the Friends of the Kent County Veterans Treatment Court to find out how you can join the mission.
There you go.
There you go. Incentives and/or motivations. Kind of picking up where the video left off. And I'm going to quote directly from Senior Prosecuting Attorney Jerry Faber, who represents Christopher Becker, who's our Chief Prosecutor in Kent County. Jerry sits on our treatment team. And this is what the incentive and motivation is for a veteran who believes that they may be wanting to come into this program. He will tell them and their attorney that the defendant has been accepted into the Kent County Veterans Treatment Court. The plea agreement is as follows. The defendant will be entering a guilty plea as charged to, fill in the appropriate blank or whatever the charge may be, and will begin his or her participation in the program. Further negotiations regarding both charge and sentence will continue, all based upon the defendant's performance and progress in the Veterans Treatment Court. What that means in layman's terms, there are no upfront deals. You have to earn your reduction, your dismissal, or whatnot. And as Chris Becker mentioned, you can call the above of carrot. The onus to do well is entirely on the veteran. And again, this is a voluntary program. So when a veteran comes in here and they look at that motivation incentive to do well, it's all on them. They have the power to make it or not. For some veterans, a carrot may be able just to get the help and structure and support from our Veterans Treatment Court, because we have a good feel for all the resources that we can leverage in the community and whatnot. And that's really more for altruistic reasons. They want to get the help, get straightened out and whatnot, and that's fine. Yet for others, especially those who already have a significant criminogenic history, the Veterans Treatment Court program and all its requirements is generally a last chance to avoid prison time. They need to finish this and finish this well and strong. Next slide. Here are the 10 key concepts of Veterans Treatment Courts. Again, these are derived from the 1997 Department of Justice concepts on drug courts. Veterans Treatment Courts, sobriety courts, drug courts all pull from the same concepts, but with different variations. Since we're a Veterans Treatment Court, we kind of tailor this to our veterans. Keep in mind also that these 10 key concepts are codified in state statute, and they're pretty self-explanatory, integrating alcohol, drug treatment, and mental health services, and case processing. Again, the big one is using a non-adversarial approach, not just by ourselves, but also by the prosecutor and the defense counsel, while promoting the public safety. And obviously, everybody is entitled to due process rights, confidentiality, and whatnot. But we use a treatment focus rather than a punitive focus. Eligible participants are identified early and promptly placed into our Veterans Treatment Court program. One of the reasons we get them pretty quickly is because of our relationships. And one of the key relationships we have, aside from the defense bar in Kent County and the prosecutor's office, is with Kent County Veteran Services. When a veteran is arrested, or anybody's arrested for that matter, they go to a central collection point, county jail. At their intake, if they self-identify as a military veteran, I get this information by agreement and memorandums of understanding. That starts the process of not just identifying, but look at a potential participant for this program. We provide access to a continuum of alcohol, drug, mental health, and other related treatment and rehabilitative services. Having said that, the primary provider of services for our veterans is the VA. The VA is the biggest game in town, and they have the deepest pockets. All the veterans in this program are eligible for VA healthcare services, so the services are done at no cost, and we're able to access that information for programming and probationary purposes through releases of information and memorandums of understanding. So there's another layer of what we can look at to make sure there's compliance on that side. Abstinence is monitored by frequent alcohol and other drug testing. Having said that, the best practice standards in the state of Michigan is twice a week, every week, throughout the duration of the Veterans Treatment Corps program, whether you're on a felony track or a misdemeanor track. That is considered a best practice. Also, veterans are tested randomly and also tested on weekends and holidays. So it's pretty strict, so you won't get that on normal probation. But then again, this is a treatment-focused specialty court. 6, a coordinated strategy governs our responses to participant compliance. So we're always talking amongst each other, whether it's the VA, whether it's another treatment provider, whether it's the attorneys, we're always in communication, a mentor, whoever, to try to benefit this person. Ongoing judicial interaction to each veteran is essential. Best practice standards, again, the veteran is known by the judge. Hence, they're going in front of the judge a minimum of twice a month, every month, for the duration while they're in this program. So the veteran, if he's going in front of somebody he's never seen before, who doesn't know his background, what he's doing, what he's not doing, what he's struggling with, his successes, you know, happy times, whatever, there's really not a lot of buy-in because the judge is just doing his job. But the same judge over and over, in this case, Judge Cortez, knows each veteran fairly well by A, talking to them, B, keeping his door open to them, and C, by us, because we brief them periodically on what's going on with each and every veteran as we have to. 8, monitoring and evaluation measures achieve program goals and gauge effectiveness. We are responsible to the state of Michigan. They evaluate all the data that we input into the same system every specialty court does, called the drug court case management information system. If something's going wrong, we'll know about it. And if it's working, great. 9, interdisciplinary education. Education is key because there's always new trends, new concepts, new laws. So we're trying to keep abreast of that. It's been tough with COVID. A lot of things are by Zoom. None of us are really a fan of Zoom, myself included. But it is what it is. But education is key. And then 10, forging partnerships amongst veterans treatment courts and the different agencies out there that we lean on to help run this program effectively. Whether it's the VA or some other public Department of Health and Human Services, Veteran Service Organization, other community-based organizations. I'm also going out and doing presentations in person, sharing the stories, advocating for this program, and making the general community aware of what we are and what we do. Next slide, please. This is the best practice standards by the State Court Administrator's Office. All the codes, all the laws, and all the best practices and standards are in this book. It is very, very new. Honestly, this is probably the 4th iteration since 2017, but this is this is our Bible, for lack of a better term. This also helps us because all veterans treatment courts have to be certified in order to do what it does. And in Kent County Veterans Treatment Court case by fiscal year 2023. But this is the manual that we all have. It's available on the website. And we have one, and you can link to that, and it shows you all the best practices and promising practices. And just really quickly, The 2021 edition that you're looking at right now, when it came out in 2027, the promising practices back then now became standards. If it says standards, that's what we have to do. And the best practice, they kind of move up in level. But this is based on trial and error within the county, within the state of Michigan, and coordination and training within the Veterans Treatment Court statewide. What works, what doesn't work, what new laws are coming out, how do we interpret? It's a continuous learning curve, which results in a document like this, which is about 160 pages long. Next slide. This manual, drug testing manual of the Michigan Association of Treatment Court Professionals, works hand in hand with SCAO to help facilitate some of the laws and concepts with regards to drug testing. There is no more ambiguity about dilutes. There is no more ambiguity about specific gravity and ETS and secondary testing. We have this down to a fine science. It is codified in law. We also, the Kent County Veterans Treatment Court also has the ability to lean on 2 PhDs who specialize in drug testing and testifying in court. And the emphasis is promoting sobriety, making veterans aware of, yeah, you can't smoke marijuana, but you can't take CBDs because some CBD oils have trace elements, or you can't use any kind of, you can't, besides not drinking, because it's a treatment court and you're trying to maintain your sobriety, some of the medications, even if they're over the counters, have alcohol in them. So you're not supposed to do them. Granted, some veterans are prescribed controlled substances like Suboxone with medicated assisted treatment, or benzodiazepine for anxiety disorder, or some other painkillers that are legally prescribed. That's fine. That, as long as they're legally prescribed and we have a valid prescription from a licensed doctor, that's fine. But these are more to take away any of the ambiguity with any kind of drug and or testing methodologies and how we do this. Next slide, please. Okay, let's talk methodology at this point. These is what's called the veteran intercepts in the criminal justice system. And you can look at this with anybody who's not a veteran, but in this case, veterans. And if you look at 0, this is the community. And then if you go down to your right and a little bit lower, that's when somebody's arrested. Let's say the veteran's arrested, okay? Then he gets arrested, goes in the county jail, and gets processed in. That's level 1. At level 2, he has to make a court appearance. This is where veterans treatment courts like to intercept the veteran in the criminal justice system. Once they go there and they have their initial hearing and their arraignment and they get a lawyer, we try to get them all the way down into the specialty court. It does us no good if they make it further into stage 3, 4, and 5 into the system where we basically lost them. They're a part of the system, they're just a number. We try to intercept them at the earliest possible point. Having said that, we generally at this point, since 2016, 17, we take cases pre-plea. So we used to take them post-plea. They've already been for probationary supervision. That doesn't happen anymore. That hasn't happened in years. We get them pre-plea, and they plead, and they come into this program, they need to plead guilty. But what we do, getting them in before they get further into the system, we're able to get them into treatment, to get them under some stabilization, and to start holding them accountable for their actions. And but this is what we use. This is the methods that we use. The big players in this intercept model is the prosecutor's office and court services, because once we identify them into that as a potential participant, we have to look at various factors, eligibility, but mainly the charge. If his charge is too violent, we generally can't do anything about it. But if it's something that passes muster with the prosecutor, then there potentially is some hope. And then we start going through the process of screening. But we like to get to interception point 2, identifying after the first arraignment, because everybody has to be arraigned. Everybody has due process rights. Providers in the community to get resources, to clarify points of eligibility, whatever we have to do in order to help us do our job. And that's expected of us. And when I go myself, or my staff goes, we represent the judge and have his support in what we're trying to do. And it's worked really well. We have very good relationships with all the people, the court system, the prosecutors, defense attorneys, service organizations, clinicians, and whatnot. We work with VA clinicians and we work with private providers as well. And the focus is all on helping and serving the veteran. Once a potential veteran participant is identified, different streams of data are collated. If a veteran is interested in Kent County Veterans Treatment Court, an in-person screening is done. This is to determine actual programmability. So once a veteran is in a program and just give them a primer on what this is involved, I have them come in, explain the program in depth, and I do what's called an eligibility screening. I collect data that's required by the state for data collection purposes, but then I also use that to help determine eligibility. To verify the data that I acquire from the veteran and other sources, I have to have ROIs that are assigned, and I get them. I get the military background and service data, which is their DD-214, which is required in state statute. Once I got the ROIs, I get the medical histories from the VA, and they ask for very specific things. I don't need their whole life story, but I need specific things that are relevant to the current charges that they're facing. Then I also get criminal histories from court services through agreement. I get risk and needs assessments and other important data and that are accessible by established court processes and memorandums of understanding. So I, for lack of a better term, I kind of farm myself out holistically to get everything to paint a very good picture of the individual, on paper at least. And then I mate that with the in-person screen to kind of look at the responses, the body language, so on and so forth. So I take one to bounce off the other. And it's been extremely, extremely successful. Our referral sources are varied, yet the process from identification to confirming data to admission consideration is extremely streamlined. In a nutshell, from once we identify a veteran, I get him sitting in front of me, get the signatures. I can generally get most of the data that I'm required to get within 2 days. Within a week, I will have an information provided back to that veteran or his attorney as to what the potential recommendation of the treatment court team is. So once I get that, I put a synopsis together on the treatment team. And the treatment team for Kent County at this point is made up of 14 individuals, 9 of whom are veterans, okay? And we run the gamut. Well, we're basically 2 main disciplines, criminal justice and clinicians, okay? I put it together, a synopsis about what the data tells me, what are my observations, here's what I think is good, here's something that I think we should consider, here's thing I don't get a warm and fuzzy. And then I put it forward to the team because we're all spread out all over Kent County. I put it out via an email and everybody votes on it to include the judge and the prosecutors. And when I get the responses back, I collate it and then I make a notice, an email notification to the veteran and or his assigned counsel and let them know of the treatment team's decision. Again, I ask for specific information because it's required by statute, but then I'm looking for some of the intangibles too. And as I mentioned in the beginning of this presentation, for the most point, there has to be some sort of nexus between a veteran's involvement in the criminal justice system and then his military service. A good example is you saw we had a Vietnam veteran on the earlier video presentation. Okay, well, he served in Vietnam in the late 60s, early 70s. He started really getting in trouble where he was looking in prison, 30 years later, but he wasn't diagnosed with PTSD until maybe not even 10 years ago. And so that's what could be saw that's somewhat common with PTSD. Some veterans even now, they say they don't have it, they're okay, they're fine, they have a little anxiety, but as they age in the lifespan and things kind of slow down and they have more time to think about things, and it kind of, for the most part, it may just come back in a big way. Next slide. Okay, current and evolving trends and policies impacting veterans treatment courts. The state of Michigan scale is current emphasis is on mental health medication compliance. Granted that veterans treatment courts are hybrid courts for drug and mental health, the vast majority of veterans currently and previously and in the future into this program take some type of mental health medication, okay? The Kent County Veterans Treatment Court was awarded a grant, one of only 2 veterans courts in the whole state, for a new swab pilot oral fluids. It looks like a pen. You open it up, you stick your mouth open and you put it in your mouth for a few minutes, it turns blue, you put a cap on it, and they can test for 150 medications. Most of it's mental health medications, because the big things we see in our court is, aside from opiate abuse, and you'll have the Suboxone or the methadone, you'll see anxiety disorder, and you'll see attention deficit disorder. You'll see a lot of depression. So there's those medications. We need to look for medication compliance, because if a veteran isn't taking his medication and starts behaving abnormally, we want to nip that in the bud. I don't want to get into a great detailed explanation, but we're really good at finding dosages, baselines, compliance, and the science is pretty straightforward now. So, but it's an emphasis now because there's a lot of mental health issues, obviously, with veterans, aside from their substance abuse problems, which is the nutshell of this program. Current state of Michigan criminal justice reforms, especially with terms of probation. Some of you out there in the criminal justice field can relate to this. Now, from what I understand, is that it's going to take a judge, if it's a nonviolent offense, it's going to take a judge to actually order somebody into treatment, because the changes are non-incarceration, unclogging the criminal justice system, and so on and so forth. That just started. I think we'll see some of the impacts of that going down the road. But how that's affecting us, I think for us as veterans treatment courts, we will probably see many more felony admissions rather than misdemeanors, but we never know. Next point, the legalization of marijuana for medical and recreational use. That's a big one, and it's legal. And the question is, can it be allowed in veterans treatment courts? In a nutshell, yes, it can, but there's a caveat. What is the medical marijuana or recreational marijuana used for? If you have a diagnosis for some ailment or whatever, we want to know. And if it's specifically a veteran comes in, I got a recreational card or medical marijuana card, we ask them a series of questions specifically related to the use of marijuana, because we know no VA doctor will prescribe it. So they go out into the community and find a doctor who will write for it, and they get it. So I ask them a series of questions and I present that to the treatment team. And if they're not convinced that this person is using it for altruistic purposes, they may want that veteran to come in and talk to the treatment team. And there's going to be a bunch of lawyers and a judge sitting there, and they're going to question him. And then they'll make the determination if this is really for needs related to their diagnosis, or is just to get high, for lack of a better term. I've had veterans in this office telling me, well, it's legal. I says, well, so is alcohol. What, can you drink? Well, no. So what's the difference? So, and I've had some veterans that refuse to come into this program because they're not going to stop smoking weed. Hey, it's a voluntary program. Best practice standards is emphasized by SCAO and the Michigan Association of Treatment Court Professionals. You saw those two big slides of best practices and drug testing. The best practice standards for certification are here. We are using them now. One of the big things is transferring cases to us, a transfer of jurisdiction. A lot of signatures required, but it's done. And you may ask, how can a district pre-sentence investigation is done, sentencing guidelines are given, they come in there a month later, get sentenced to whatever the terms of the PSI, and there's their motivation to do well and continue on with the program. Cuts a lot of ambiguity out. Another one is accepting misdemeanor and felony cases filed with authority granted via judicial assignment per statute. Again, this is what I've just been talking about. Judge Cortez, or any judge for that matter, the district court level, can, with the authority of the state assignment per statute, adjudicate a felony. But for us, it's mainly because we are a problem-solving court. We are very specific with that. And that's why it's very easy for us to get a judicial case assignment for the judge, because we are a problem-solving court and it is codified in statute that we can do this. Next one, evolving trends and policies impacting. Initial pleas to get veterans engaged with treatment. As soon as the veterans accepted into this program, they come in here and they plead, and they have to plead guilty to the instant offense. Okay, if they want a trial, they don't need to be here. You have to plead guilty to the instant offense. And what that does, that allows us, the clock doesn't really start ticking in terms of any kind of major consequence. The thought being is when they plead, we get them into the program, we get them stabilized with treatment. If they have issues with housing, we kind of work those things out. Transportation, we try to remove all the barriers to success. We look at this thing holistically, and we get them engaged. Subsequently, after the pre-sentence investigation is completed, they come back and then they are sentenced. And then, and as such, this allows our Judge Cortez, to adjudicate felonies in a district court. And as you saw in the video, the prosecutor under statute has the ability to dismiss, reduce, or not any charges. And the onus to do well in this program is on the veteran.
Just
Next
wanted
slide.
to give a verbal warning that we do have only about 4 to 5 more minutes left.
Yeah, I'm just about done. Next slide. Return on investment, you can see there. Behaviors modified, coping skills learned, sobriety maintained. Another return on investment, a lot of the veterans that come into the program may or may not be receiving benefits. And if they are, they're ordered the treatment as we are a specialty court. So what happens is these encounters with treatment can be adjudicated by the VA for a claim of increase for benefits, which are tax-free, and that benefits the local economy. Spending is increased, tax base is enhanced. Another return is some of our veterans, not a lot of them, some of them get married and they reestablish broken relationships, especially with children. Visitation, things of that nature. And because now they've had their untreated substance abuse and mental health issues addressed, families remain united. And for those veterans, aside from the family and relational issues, earning a reduction from a felony or misdemeanor makes finding employment and housing a lot easier. Hence, our success rate to date is 92%, and these are rounded averages. Our recidivism rate is 11%. The state average for all courts is 29%. Next slide. Our website, we have one. You want to just Google Kent County Veterans Treatment Court, or you can go to the city of Wyoming. You have a Facebook page, and there's my information right there. That's all I have. Does anybody have any questions that I can address? Please feel free to email them to me, or if we got a few minutes, I can answer them right now.